Today's question is talking all about what grains are considered to be beneficial and actually the healthiest to have in a dog's diet. My next question is from Carla, who asks, with the implication of grain-free and exotic ingredients in a dog's diet, what grains are considered to be beneficial and the healthiest for a dog? She knows that corn and wheat are not at the top of anyone's list, but what grains should she be thinking about feeding her dog? So to start with, for those of you who aren't aware, so grain-free diets have been implicated as the cause of heart failure in dog breeds that would not normally get that particular type of heart failure. And it's not just grain-free diets, it's also boutique food brands and exotic ingredient diets, and that includes raw diets that have been implicated in this. And check out the show notes for more discussion about that. If you need more information, definitely check it out if you are feeding your pet a grain-free diet. We don't know what the cause is. It's not taurine, which is something that's been talked about. An investigation is ongoing, so hopefully we'll have an answer about that soon. Let's start with the fact that dogs have no absolute requirement for carbohydrates, meaning that they don't have to have carbohydrates in their diet, but they have evolved to be able to digest and to make use of them. So they have different genetics to wolves, and they are able to digest grains and they are able to utilize them in their diet. So grains are made up of a number of different things. They're the seeds from different grasses, and they include things like barley, rye, spelt, and wheat. We get gluten-free varieties, corn, oats, and rice. And then there are the pseudo grains, which are seeds from shrubs and other plants, and that's things like buckwheat, millet, and quinoa. So grains really, what are they? Well, they're the seeds, like I've said, but they're actually complex carbohydrates made up from starch and fiber. So that's really what makes them up. If we think about refined grains, so things that have been heavily processed, then they really only include something called the endosperm, which is simple starch and proteins. Now, if we move on to whole grains, so that haven't been processed so much, then that contains bran, which is really fiber rich, and that's the outer layer of the grain. It's good for intestinal health, and the bran is also rich in vitamin B and other minerals. And then the whole grain also includes the central germ, and that contains vitamin E, the B vitamins, antioxidants, and some fats as well. So whole grains really, they're much more nutritious than highly refined grains, which probably won't come as any surprise to you. Also what grains are healthy to feed to a dog. So having said that, dogs can digest grains and they can utilize them, grains shouldn't be utilized as a substitute for high quality animal protein. So we're not talking about using grains to completely replace the animal protein or the kind of the meat, if you like. We're just using it as an addition to a diet. Now, some dogs are allergic to specific individual grains, so that individual grains, not all grains. Wheat is actually the most common allergy or grain allergy that dogs have, but the risk of this is greatly overstated, and it's definitely not the most normal reason for food allergies. So by far and away the most common food allergies that animals and dogs experience are to the actual animal protein. So that's things like beef, chicken, and dairy, which are the top three causes of dietary allergies. Wheat then comes next. Now, some dogs do have a gluten sensitivity, and really that's kind of often breed related, it's genetic related. Irish setters are the most likely to have this, but again, it's not really common. So in the vast majority of dogs, grains can be a valuable source of nutrients. Whole grains are generally more nutrient rich. So rather than talking about which grain in particular, I'd be saying whole grains are definitely the best. And that's, something we should be thinking about. They're more nutrient rich than highly refined grains. But that said, they shouldn't make up the bulk of a diet. The reason this is an issue is that refined grains especially, they are very cheap, and so they're often used as the main component, the main bulk of a diet, especially in cheaper diets. So, we want to be thinking how much grain is in a diet. We don't want it to be the main thing, and also what type of grain. So rather than the specific plant, if you like, we should be thinking about whole grains rather than refined grains ideally.
You've been watching the Dr. Alex Answers video podcast. Remember to subscribe and head over to dralexanswers.com for any links, downloads, and get your question answered.